The goal of any defensive strategy is to try to limit the number and probability of good shot attempts that an offense makes. And so a man-to-man defense tries to accomplish this by assigning the defensive players one or more offensive players that they are responsible for guarding. And so in this scenario, what will happen is if the on-ball defenseman gets beat, we need to help that player. So we send another one of our off-ball players to go help the ball. But once we do that, we've got 2 players on the ball and 4 players playing 5 on the backside. And so with that, what we're trying to do in our slide and recovery systems is we're trying to allow the player who was originally on ball enough time that he can get back and match up with one individual player. And so that's the whole idea. We want to make sure that when we send a slide, we are allowing our player who is on ball enough time to get back and rematch up so that we can get back to our even. And so this slide recovery system is pretty hectic. And the first thing that we have to do is we have to give each player on the field a positional cue. And these positional cues are related to their position in relation to the on-ball defender. As the ball and offensive players move, all of our defensive assignments are going to change and then change again. And so all the players are going to have to communicate their positions at all times. And so to outline these positions, we're going to show you a traditional defensive setup against a 2-3-1 and then against an open set. And so the basics here are that we've got 4 main position types. We've got ball, adjacent, crease, and 2. In our example, DM1 is the on-ball defender and his call is ball or I've got ball. The on-ball defender is the only player who will be responsible for only that player. Everyone else will have to work to defend multiple players. The LSM is our first adjacent defender and his call is right because he is the defender to the right of the on-ball defenseman. The right defensive player is responsible for the offensive player to the right of the on-ball defenseman, in this case M2, as well as the ball carrier if he dodges to the lane that is to the right of the on-ball defenseman. D1 is our second adjacent defender and his call is left because he is the defender to the left of the on-ball defenseman. The left defensive player is responsible for the offensive player to the left of the on-ball defenseman, in this case A1, as well as the ball carrier if he dodges to the lane to the left of the on-ball defenseman. DM2 is our crease defenseman, and this player has a bunch of different calls depending on the terminology of the program. The most popular calls are hot, one, and IGO. The crease player is responsible for defending the player on the crease as well as the ball carrier if he dodges to the crease area behind the on-ball defender. D2 is our first 2 defenseman, and his call is 2 for 3 reasons that relate to his responsibilities. First, the player he is defending, A2, is 2 passes away from the ball carrier. Second, he is splitting 2 separate players, and depending on which defensive strategy you are using, these 2 players will change. In the crease slide defense, he is responsible for his man, A2, and M3 on the crease. In an adjacent slide defense, he is responsible for his man, A2, and A1. And finally, he would be the second slide if D1 or DM2 decide to slide, meaning that if either of those players leave their men to create the first slide, he is now responsible for sliding to the men that they left as the second slide. D3 is our second 2 defenseman, and his call is also 2 for the same reasons. His player, A3, is 2 passes away from the ball. He is responsible for A3 and M3 or M2, depending on the defense we are in, and he would be the second slide if DM2 or the LSM have to slide to the ball carrier. Now, if we look at the open set, we have a lot of the same assignments, but we get rid of our crease defenseman as there is no crease offensive player to guard. And out of this player, we create a 3 slide. So in this example, DM1 is ball, DM2 is right, D1 is left, the LSM and D2 are the 2s, and D3 is our new 3 player. The 3 is defined in the same way that the 2 is defined. First, the player he is guarding here, A3, is 3 passes away from the ball. Second, D3 is responsible for defending 3 possible players and would be the 3rd slide. If DM2 and the LSM slide, he would be the 3rd slide and have to slide to M3. If D1 and D2 have to slide, he would be the 3rd slide and have to defend A2. So with these positional cues, now we have a base set for how we are going to play all of the players on the offensive side of the ball. One of the hardest things to coach in regards to teaching players how to communicate on defense and what all of these terms mean is that players need to associate the term that they are using with what they are capable of doing. Because if they don't, they're just going to be running around the field calling out left, two, I go, all of these different terms without realizing exactly what they mean. For me, I've had a ton of players over the years who say left or they say I got right, but they're not actually in a position where they can influence the ball carrier. So as the ball carrier dodges, they can't play him. So one of the biggest things that I try to harp on is the fact that if you say you're a 2, you better be spidered inside and be able to play the crease. You better fill that role because you can make the play and communicate only the things that you can actually make happen. A slide and recovery situation in a crease slide defense works like this. If DM1 gets beat by M1, DM2 will slide to the ball while D2 and D3 spider in to help on the crease. Although we may be giving up the through passes to A2 and A3, these are the most difficult passes on the field to make as long as our defensemen have their sticks up in passing lanes. Once DM2 is in position where he can actively defend M1, he will tell DM1 to find one or to recover, and DM1 will recover to the crease and bump D2 and D3 out to their respective assignments. Hopefully, we will be able to recover back into position before the offense can swing the ball around the field and take a good shot. There are a number of main benefits for the crease slide defense. First, everyone on the field knows at all times who the slide man is. Second, since the adjacent defensemen know that they do not need to help the ball, we can use these players to press out and try to force offensive mistakes. Third, recoveries are pretty simple if there is minimal offensive movement. Some of the drawbacks of running strictly a crease defense include: 1, we may not be prepared if an offense that we play runs an open set. 2, if we're going to apply pressure and our opponents swing the ball quickly, our players will need to cover a lot of distance as they transition from playing the ball to getting in to help the crease. Third, if the offense runs any motions where adjacent players come between the crease player and the ball carrier, our slide will be much harder to accomplish, and we will essentially be sliding past our own players to help the ball. 4, it relies heavily on forcing dodgers down the alleys, which, if you ever get beat over the top, you have to slide upfield and you open up a lot of options for an offense.